It is October 12th, 2022. It's a Wednesday. Um, I'm rewatching before they put on General McMaster's this morning in some high five. Um, and by high five, I mean like again they added some motion to that with a hand gesture here in New York. On. So I rewound it and it's got Esta Io CBS Nova York. Because there's a couple of different versions of like who brings in the stories and is working with CBS to do this high five or from the five to the hive. I'm not sure. Um, then I realized that even though they call him General McMaster's and they call him Master Class, there's in front of his name they refer to him as HR. Now in the New York that I've been in a series of rooms, they define HR as human resources. So or its headquarters has an HR department or office, I think. I don't know. Don't know who they organize themselves as. Um, but I see, like in the ancient times, they used to refer to the people of the mountains as the watchers, the seers, the um, the guardians. I mean, that was our titles in esoteric story format when they were reading fables and what's the other word for fable? Um, Parables in this America. Um, in the series of rooms that I had professors in professing something of mediocre level, um, whatever. So I'm watching this, and McMaster's looks very familial or family oriented. Um, where I lose my overture is what God, what country, what family. That's where I'm like, or at some level, how does this work? And you look like you should be familial, but I have no idea because there's so much non familial in this terra forma of I don't know what's going on at drug lord, warlord, landlord, and oh good lord. Um, with who's bound to what book. So I'm watching this as a reference then, because I don't know if the man in New York is having a bit. I hear one retired, but I hear like I can see there's a lot of stuff in New York. I got hit with 2 rings from Lords of, it looks like the Dark Lord, and I have no other way of explaining it. Um, so I'm watching this, and they make this McMaster's reference, and I'm like, okay, so if I have to, in an allowable whatever, how do I explain what I'm seeing that the children are putting on the teleprompter to that level of there's like in the defense department, who defends me? and who defends me to get me to hungry in the eye over 6 foot that I was supposed to be bound and book with, instead of whatever these rings did in whatever they're up to. So I'm watching this, and I'm like, so now I make a video and I overlay parlay with him in the background, and he's got one of the flags on his lapel pin is this, and then he's got a tie around his neck. He's got a necktie with this symbol. So I'm like, all right, if I have to look for signs and clues of, is this man supposed to be trustworthy or not for King George's descendants that are in this area, and know that there's some stuff that the high five needs to know about? How does that work? Especially when the series of rooms that they've essentially kept you safe, but also locked you up in with little room to move, hasn't presented much like in the way of being able to communicate effectively, quietly. And there's some stuff going on in the local area. So I'm watching this. So they make reference to this man, and I'm like, how do you tell if he's a fee, fi, or a foe? And then, and in the Defense Department, it's like, so, right? Is that special operations so? Or is that, I mean, like, master class, I am really at odds with whatever happened in this modern world. So I'm watching. So they make reference to him. I see the symbols on the tie. I see the lapel pin. And I'm like, he's talking about 5 work. And I'm like, so he's some form of professor in this situation. And then I go to the Channel 12 news today, and they're informing me with no master class representative that there's a group that are swearing themselves in as U.S. American citizens. And I'm like, now, how does that happen? On whose authority? Is King George? Where's Thomas Jefferson? I met a Thomas Jefferson, and he, like, by ID. Like, does he know that in New York, there's groups of people just swearing themselves in? I don't know. And they said they're from 17 different countries. Didn't name the countries. And I'm like, now, who at master's class in like HR, general, McMaster's level that I don't have access to, is someone like clearing these 17 countries with this myriad of menagerie? Like, are these tribally accepting of one another? Or is this like putting 2 beta fish inside of a bowl till they fight to the death? Because at times it's I looked at some of the other headlines today, like the stabbings, the shootings, the subways, there's graffiti all over Manhattan. I'm like whose are they? I mean, with airline and boating, like shipping and containment seems to be of high concern. Like, feeling very nationally unsecured. And I asked for a rep and nobody even showed up. Except somebody from Beijing. I'm like, that's not even my nationality. And then yesterday, they mentioned there was National Coming Out Day. Just for headlines that don't make sense but in a conversation in a far, far closet of the galaxy somewhere, I feel like some artwork dealer and director are laughing their asses off. I mean, again, it's really supposed to be very serious, but I feel like there's snickers and chuckles in an office with a closed door, and then they come out and they straighten their ties and they're really serious and really mad.
Este é o CBS Nova York.
We're back now on CBS Mornings here at 7:30 as Ukraine surveys the damage from massive Russian attacks all across the country yesterday. Officials are saying at least 19 people were killed. Many lost access to power, to water, to heat in what was the largest Russian attack in months. We're joined now by retired Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster, a CBS News foreign policy at...
Oh, he's retired. What does I mean? Does it? Isn't this like a life of service? Isn't this like a lifelong gig? Like what? How do you retire from something like this meaningful? I So anyhow, it says even though they refer to him as a general, uh, they wrote on here HR. They didn't give words for what HR phonetically like equates out to in characters. So, but look, on his tie, it looks to be friendly, and on its lapel, it looks to be friendly. So, I are there training classes where the children actually get to get like taught like the signs and the symbols of like you're one of the king's children. There's the Book of Kings, and you're booked. We help you on your journey. Like, where's the journeyman here that actually care and are actually booked to my safety and safekeeping? In this land, the fabric of consciousness was where George Washington's ancestors. There's some backups in the green linen they gave me: Hamilton, Lincoln, Jefferson, although Jefferson's more of a hidden numerical reference. But George is number one on the list of references. I think someone hungry in the eye once asked me, do I look like George Washington's whatever? And I said, well, you look much better looking than George Washington. And he said, and that was a good answer, according to the person who originally asked it. So that happened. So this is the face of the flag, and the flags here as well. Where I'm lost in translation is getting booked and bound correctly in a safe manner with people who actually care, rather than having to figure out rings of fire and ice and trouble and it being rampant and everywhere. So there's that, just to open the conversation. I see that the See the BS in that version of, I think Nova York is a Greek reference. But again, I worry, just like with the Italians and between the Solomons and the Farouks, I don't know, as a king or as a George Washington, is that better than saying King George? Because he had a lot of kids. And ancestors being whatever we are, wherever we are. And I have just been in a series of rooms waiting for the correct over 6 foot that already came to pick me out, and Saladino knew about it. There's one eyewitness outside of a Huntington, whatever it was. in a hole in space that I can remember, and then sometimes I'm not able to remember. But today, memory's working. Now, this is the Eyewitness News at noon. It's October 12th, 2022 at 12 p.m. It confuses me how these people are swearing themselves in from 17 different countries. I don't know which countries they're from. I don't know if they have a history that's going to clash with what's going on here. What warlord, drug lord, and landlord did they come from? Why are they asking to be here? Do they have special permission? Is this special operations? Is this a master's operation? Like, again, a national newsletter really would be key here. I just don't know why the U.S. Post and the mail's not working.
Big day for dozens of people in Paterson, New Jersey, who are now citizens of the United States.
That I will support and defend.
That I will support and defend.
The Constitution and laws.
The Constitution and laws.
Of the United States.
The ceremony was held at the Paterson Great Falls National Historical Park this morning. 40 people took the oath of allegiance. Mayor Andre Saya called the new Americans to stand tall and pursue their dreams.
Paterson, being the birthplace of the American dream, is also where American dreams can come true. And I'm hoping that your American dreams come true here in Paterson or Passaic and Clifton, but here in the United States of America, where you're going to make it happen.
The new citizens hailed from 17 different countries.
In an effort to cut down.
Unannounced. Now it's been announced, but no country names. There's no 5. They're not given the Hive 5 information. Like, how does one survive this level of they're just doing stuff? Busy bees. But no, like, rhyme or reason that I could figure out.
Assaults are up 17% from this time last year, according to the NYPD. Here's Eyewitness News reporter Derek Waller.
We're standing outside the Columbus Circle subway station. This is where a man with
one of the rings, not my ring, but it looks like it's a circle. Columbus Circle, it looks like. Here, there's a whole lot of graffiti going on. I mean, it's just, I don't know, like, whose children are these that's doing this and why?
and was assaulted overnight, and it comes a day after Eyewitness News actually rode the subway with the police commissioner. Only Eyewitness News cameras were there, as NYPD Commissioner Keyshawn Sewell heard directly from riders, starting at the Lexington Avenue.
City's health commissioner.
Now here's the next thing. Now New York City has this health commissioner. Whose health is he in charge of? Because he looks very sick. So now there's some bivalent, covalent, just so ionic in bonds. They want some booster. So what? I don't know the drug lord, the warlord, and the landlord's agreement or disagreement with this particular individual and whatever he's representing. But now they want some bivalent booster. Now, is this a campaign where they're terrorizing the New York City residents with these vaccinations in order to bolster up more financial campaigns to cause more and future problems with the immigration, migration, e-migrant program that's going on between a high five between multiple whatevers. I mean, like, this is getting really, I can't even get proper health care in New York. Like, I have the insurance coverage, thank God, but trying to find a doctor that actually knows and studied what I need them to know. They put on yesterday about a daycare center with carbon monoxide poisoning. I was like, oh, I wonder what they're putting in the combustible tanks of the burners that are like pretty much essentially running through the neighborhood that might be a different form of toxin, because they say it's odorless and whatever. I mean, I have the odoriferous events that sometimes are on, sometimes are off. But then there's, of course, the vehicles, which you never know where they gas up, and then come through the city. For a while, there was a lot of ambulance traffic, lights, sirens, big things. No idea where in New York City they gas up. Now it seems that traffic down Bell Boulevard has stopped. I don't know if they were part of a larger operation of trying to intoxify the residents. Again, it's really hard to tell why, like, how do you go from so many medical emergencies to now there's really not quite as many? Just it looks like the numbers are off. And what were they burning in those city tanks that I don't know their fueling stations? I don't know who tests their fueling stations. I don't know who keeps track of this stuff. Like, if you really have this level of concern and if you're experiencing real levels of health being compromised, who needs to know this level stuff?
Addressed the media today. Dr. Ashwin Vasan talked about everything from COVID-19 to monkeypox to polio, all pressing issues, especially as the weather gets cooler. He says the city is prepared to fight COVID. More than 363,000.
Now, bivalent boosters in New York City, administered in New York City. Again, I can't tell if they're calling out to future operations. Is this like, are they tying it into actions that they're doing here in the city now? But on a big esoteric scale, they're expecting something else. It's a little difficult trying to watch this level of communication and seeing the sea of differences that have descended into multiple areas and not being able to even find like gainful employment or standards and intelligence, and like not even romantically, just in a professionalism and courtesy as a public servant or service family member who knows who God is in bound books, who knows who country is supposed to be, and who knows what family keeps it safe, funded properly, and on the right path and track. And then last but not least, they had last night at 4:00, they had a press release or whatever's on the Eyewitness News at 4 about this National Coming Out Day. Now they make it like it's GAY, but in GIU, I'm not sure if it's shorthand or short script as opposed to the actual actors having some preference of something that I don't ever want to have to be asked or talked about, ever. they are whatever they are, and that's it. But they've got some like alternating campaign at the circus level of involving things that then take on a life of their own. And at times, it seems to argue the point in the wrong direction. And that goes directly to the whole abortion. Are we talking about aborting a mission? Like, I never said to abort, I want over 6 foot as my formal once in a lifetime and for the continuation of happily ever after as like Disney princess level. That's what I wanted. I never said to abort that mission. So I don't know how or why it was brought in and then taken away. And I know it exists. I don't know why I got under 6 foot and 2 rings. No clue why. But it's nothing more than a piece of paper with some big signals on it and a lot of harm that they brought against my person.
And a new initiative aims to make New York a safe haven for transgender youth and their families.
We welcome transgender kids and their families to New York with open arms by making New York State a safe haven. To protect transgender kids requires allowing them to access medical care that permits them to live according to their own definition of themselves.
Now, is this some circus event that is trying to argue on my behalf that I need help with some of the medical staff that's here in New York? Because if that's the case, on that note, I greatly appreciate it and I hear you loud and clear. Then I think there's a lot of people that may work at this masterclass and HR level, if I can't define it because I don't have access to it, but he seems to be at like that high standard and intelligent level that I don't even have words to describe because I've been in a series of rooms and other things went on instead of where I wanted to end up. So on that note of make New York a safe haven for gender, is that your gentry? Is that like where your ancestors were from? And then if you descend, or if you're, I mean, like it used to be that you were invited, you had papers, you had secured employment, it was direct line, you had to have family members already here in good standing. There was like a whole thing. So, but now they've made transgender into something else. And they're like bringing it out to a whole nother level of people, of man, woman, not sure, which I don't want to get into. But again, paradoxically, I can see taking the human out of it, no human body as a reference. I can understand between motherland, fatherland, and then this hybrid sibling relationship and this like adult to parent, and somewhere in between they're doing like teenage work. But it gets really confusing unless you have the correct circus professional to sit down and have therapeutic conversations with. I don't know how to find such an individual. I think I'm deserving of it. I think he deserving of me. But I see very clearly the circus and the signs of intelligence. But again, it trips me up and I get really frightened about what layer of intelligence is speaking in, through, or to, and why it feels like there are layers that are falling apart for campaigning the wrong way. The more the system breaks, the harder it is to keep this level of reality. But then that goes back to the airlines and the shipping and containments of like, how are they even arriving? And why is there so much movement allowed? And why are they choosing the movement that's been pushing up? Like, again, there's a lot of things that are not clear.
Well, New York State Senator Brett Hoylman, along with other LGBTQ advocates, rallied today for the new bill. The measure would ensure that children would not be separated from their parents while accessing gender-affirming care, which is the case in some states. The proposal also aims to prohibit law enforcement from cooperating with other states' investigations and protect the health of people who come to New York to receive gender-affirming care.
You can once again.
And then it goes back. I'm like, all right, my high is here. This is where my high is, or hive. And if there's 5 issues with entering the hive and staying within that construct of George Washington's ancestors, because he's on the number $1 bill, for like an LL in Roman numerals, Benjamin Franklin on the 100. So I'm like, there's a lot of, it just feels like a lot of ill aggressors that have destabilized some system or undermined it and are now actively and more aggressively climbing into chains and climbing into protocols and climbing into commands and almost rewriting landscape and scripts. And pretty much it feels like a lot of identity theft. To be really honest, I see it very prevalent, not to start an argument with any Italian group, but knowing what my father looks like and knowing that in the movie theaters as Italians go, and in some of the new Centuries shows, it's almost like they've typecast my father as he's not even an Italian, which I don't know what they're trying to gain as far as access to and take over territories by alternate methods. I'm not sure. I wouldn't put it past them, but from an American high standard, I definitely see the signs. The Greek community is another one. Technically, the Polish girl and myself looked more Hellenistic. Heliopolis, the Parthenon. I mean, that's where the ancient statues, we were ancient Greece. But then the Afghan comes in and he's calling himself the Greek in St. John's on Crescent Street. And I'm like, whoa, Vincent. And then something happened there. One of those, I was in school, then I was after school, and then I don't know, I woke up, my car was moving, but I was behind the wheel, but I wasn't. And then I stopped the car, I pulled over, I had to get my bearings, I didn't know where I was totally frightened. And this was in Queens in either 95 or 96. And then I went home and I woke up and I had no memory of it. And nobody ever talked about it. Just went back to school like it was no big thing. And on Crescent Street, my skirt was to my ankles in dress code, and my shirt was a full sleeve. They didn't require a blazer or a jacket, although at times I had one. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.